All right. So we have about 45 minutes. It should be more than enough time for us to have a dialogue, but we will get started amongst ourselves, and we'll see how that goes. What we try to figure out is what do we do with data, what the data can influence, what the challenges are around data, more specifically around data security, around data governance, around tracking data as it moves to organizations. We're going to try to cover topics such as potentially what's around data that's within an organization, things like algorithms, things like processes which are embedded in data, which are not serialized, not written anywhere. How do you track that? How do you embed that knowledge into data? How do you pass it along to, let's say, for the next generations of people that work with that data? So there's a lot of details in big data that we do not typically talk about when you have a 20-minute presentation. So I would like to ask the panel to get down and dirty and talk about your experiences, real-life experiences, because the audience is very technical, and I think that's what they're looking for. You guys to share your experience, horror stories, issues, problems, and everything that we might have. So I will go with the first question of the panel, but again, I guess you guys can ask other questions as well, and we'll have time for that. So we all understand that data is critical to businesses. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Testing. All right. So we all agree that data is very important to businesses, right? Then, if it is so, who should then have access to it? Should everybody in an organization have access to the data lake, or should only be a select few? So, go ahead. You're the first one. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm Gijs Meijer. I'm the IT director of the big data team in ING in the Netherlands. So we have about 15 squads working on Hadoop and data marts and all that kind of stuff. Just to shortly introduce myself.
Yeah, sure.
So if you look at access to big data, basically one of our strategies in the Netherlands is to make our tribes, because we work in tribes, make more data driven. So basically we try to provide as much access to data to the teams as possible, basically to improve themselves and improve the service to the customers. But the only thing there is you have to be careful who you give access to. But I think we give access as much as possible, and we can allow within the borders of compliancy and what we agree to with our customers. So we try to give everyone access as much as possible, basically.
All right. Mihai? Yeah, short introduction would be very nice.
Short introduction. I'm Mihai Popescu. I'm a security technical architect at Accenture. I'm involved in emerging technologies, so enabling emerging technologies for the clients of Accenture. And we work and we partner with different vendors in the market to find out what is the best solution to respond to some pressing requirements. And we see now that big data and the analytics projects, they are very, very demanded. Yeah, so everyone wants to implement that kind of solutions, but there are also challenges in this space. So we try to address those. Coming to this question, to who should have access, of course. It's a reduced number of people. Depends on the sensitive, how sensitive is the data. Yeah, so it depends on how you balance the risk of losing the data and benefiting from the actually extracting information from the data. So there is a balance in that, and every enterprise, every company should think in advance in balancing the risk.
All right.
Guess it's up to me. Good afternoon, I'm Menno. I was here a couple of hours ago talking about Bol.com, what we've done with data. And actually we're a data-driven company. We use data to improve pretty much everything for our customers and for our partners. But also we're a company who believes in transparency. We try to be transparent in every aspect So to each other, we like to give feedback to each other, but also, for instance, but also if you look at data. So we try to give as much access as possible. I agree with you. I mean, there could be compliance reasons or some legal reasons not to, why we cannot give access, so to block it. But in principle, we try to give as much insight as possible to everyone. So everyone can do their job, and they don't have to go to someone else to get insight in whatever they would like to know.
Yeah. All right. So the conclusion overall is that we need to allow people to have access based on their role within the organization, right? And this access is restricted, and not everybody can have access. All right.
Yeah, that's where it gets difficult, because I think it's easy said to say, okay, we want to give access to people to data and try to limit that sometimes. But how do you do that? Of course, that's a challenge, because what you see, at least what I see within ING, is that we're kind of implementing that now. We have some implementations of access management, but you see that really with all the data, you need to kind of label it or have metadata on it to be able to properly afterwards provide the access management and not make that too fine-grained, because that's not maintainable. So that's really, I see it as kind of a squeeze. So we try to do it as best as we can, but we're not there yet. So we haven't found the silver bullet. Let's say that.
Yeah, I agree. There is no silver bullet. Every solution is specific and should be treated, with care. So you need to actually go to very details of the requirements and actually. In addition to that, there are restrictions from the regulatory compliance, there are restrictions from internal. In case you lose information, you might lose business. Yeah, so it's also a matter of taking care of your business intelligence, because in the data there is a lot of value. So losing that value is, you lose competitive advantage. Okay.
Can you name a few tools that you use to restrict this data? Again, get down and dirty. Apache Ranger, Atlas.
I think we are indeed, we have kind of the Hadoop part where we use Ranger, and we're now working with Atlas. And on the data mart side, we have IBM's InfoSphere. So we have also some metadata there. And I think one of the good things that's happening is that in Atlas, I think they're trying to standardize the feeds from tools like InfoSphere and other tools to integrate stuff in Atlas. They're agreeing also on that with IBM and other big vendors. So you have kind of one place where you can then create your data views or whatever from. So I think the pivotal point for us is becoming Apache Atlas, which is basically open source. So that's good. Yeah.
All right. You've mentioned metadata. And Atlas is a way of attaching metadata to data for security purposes, but for other purposes as well. But there are tools for controlling this metadata more closely. Like, can you name a few that you've used, or any process around controlling metadata? And first of all, of course, why should we track metadata? What kind of information should be added there?
Yeah. So every project that we do actually starts with understanding what is the sensitivity of data. So that's part of the a process of data classification process, and each of these data receive like that label of metadata, and you know what to do with it. Yeah, at the end, if you're losing that data, what you're exposed to in advance. Yeah, so when you're creating some information, you already classified, and you put a price on it internally, like you rank it. You don't put dollars, but you rank it. Yeah, so you know what is your sensitive data, and you know how to handle it at the end. Because if you want to put an encryption solution, for example, to protect that data, if you protect everything, that will be very expensive. Yeah, so you need to focus your efforts on your very core of sensitive data, and you need to actually every time be aware of where the data is. Yeah? So there are different kind of benefits of using this. There are different kind of tools and vendors that provide with each of these data that is generated, each of these files that you put in, for example, software as a service. In behind of that, they calculate the sensitivity of the data using the data loss prevention tools. Yeah, so they do this calculation. They know where the sensitive data is automatically by analyzing it, and then when you know this and you classify it, you know what to do with it, and you know actually what you're exposed to if you lose it and how to protect it. You start putting controls in place. You start taking some measures.
Yeah, if you look at Bol.com, I mean, the way how we develop our software is we take an iterative or an agile approach. So basically, we just get started, figuring out what we want to do, build a solution, and then start thinking about, probably not the first, about security or about authorizations or about, data that we should encrypt. And that's actually the process we go through on a continuous basis. And if you look at the tool set, I mean, if you look at our call it our big data platform, on one end we have, or our data platform actually. So on one end we have the old data warehouse based on Oracle, with Oracle OBIE, with an authorization model on top of it, which is not very detailed, to be honest. The easier it is to maintain. So, and I like that. And the other, if you look at the other platforms, so the Hadoop type of platform. So first of all, you have some security, of course, on the server layer. So some people can access the root, and some can't. We don't have too much restrictions on actually who can access the Hadoop files. And on top of that, we have something, a tool called Platform, which is our reporting suite on top of the Hadoop platform. And also in there, we have a authorization model, which we're in the process of rolling it out. And again, taking an agile approach, it is still very high level.
Is that open source?
Platform is not open source. No, it's not open source.
Okay, great. Didn't know that.
All right. So there are other kinds of metadata, not just security-related metadata, or origin metadata about the processes. Can you tell me a bit more about that? If you're setting something like that up, if you're using any form of flow control, let's say software, things like Apache NiFi or things like that. How are you actually doing this data ingestion into, let's say, HDFS? Which tools? How do you do the ETL? How do you attach this metadata? How do you do the encryption? Well, the encryption is done by HDFS. So,
well, that's a lot of questions.
I know. I mean, what I'm trying to get at is try to be, think about what is relevant for the audience, from your own experience.
Okay, so I think on the one hand, if you look at what goes more into Hadoop for exploratory, analysis for the data scientists, that kind of stuff, I think it's mainly more the access management. Mm-hmm. The tools we just discussed play a big role in that. If you look at, let's say, more the traditional part, we are a bank, so we also have a lot of reporting. Mm-hmm. There, I think data lineage is very important. So we need to know where it came from, when it came, how that was read in, and was that processed properly, and then transformed properly, and then went to the all the legal and obligatory reports properly. So we use it mainly for a lot of lineage. And there we use IBM Infosphere for that more structured data. Okay. And for the, let's say, more the streaming data, we have, I think, indeed Kafka, Nifi. Well, Nifi is not really enterprise ready yet, so that's kind of more in the early stages. So that's what we're struggling with always with the Hadoop ecosphere. That's very cool stuff, but to use it in a bank, we need to take some extra steps to make it secure. So we are kind of experimenting with that, but we have Kafka running, I think, quite a while now. That's working quite properly. Yeah. So basically, I think that's what we do. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Good.
Yeah. If you look like how we've tried to organize ourselves, at Bol.com. I mean, all the data that we have services, like transactional services to create an order or to create an invoice or whatever. What we try to do is we expose, not only try, actually what we're doing, we expose all data, we export all data via a mechanism which we call a bulk interface to our Hadoop platform. Even louder. Can you hear me? So we've something called a bulk interface. So we push out all the data to our Hadoop cluster, and actually the team who's responsible, so not only the IT team but also the business team who's responsible for that service, for that domain, they're also responsible for defining for the definition of the metadata for their component. So we try to push it down as much as possible. And if you have some, call it combined metrics, combined elements, because you can think about the cancellation percentage, which is about orders and returns, for instance, or cancellations, orders and cancellations. We try to define it where the two elements come together. So really on the lowest level as possible, because it just makes it easier. The team is responsible for the domain. They should know their data. They should have a good insight in what an order is, or what a cancellation is, or whatever. So that's kind of how we solved it.
Yeah, I agree with that. So I think we also have, you have the technical part we just discussed, but there's also a kind of a governance part in it as well. So you need to have, especially with the structured data we have, that go into financial reporting, we really need to have the involved tribes and people that they have a data officer. That's not a person, it's a role, but they are very responsible for the quality of the data, the metadata, that kind of stuff. Because you need the ownership there, because it's their data. Someone else can't do it for them. So I think that's quite a crucial part of making it work. Yeah, as well. Agree.
Sorry. Tell me more on the business side. So you said that it's not just a technical challenge, right? No. So it is a big technical challenge in general, but everything comes from the business. Let's say trying to transform the organization, one way or another. And you're all technical guys, but but you're very, very much involved with the business part of things. You're the interface somehow, to some degree, to the underlying technology for the business part. How do you see this, let's say, interaction happening? Because maybe the members of the audience will have to be in your shoes later on. What do you think are the biggest challenges in talking about these highly complicated environments with business people?
Yeah, I think about 1.5 years ago, I think now in ING in the Netherlands, we transformed to the kind of Spotify model of working. I don't know if you know it, but it's in tribes where you have business and IT people together. So basically my squads are not only IT people, but also business people.
Oh, okay.
So it's kind of, it's happening on that level. It's not that I have a big discussion with my colleague, business manager, on these kind of things. In the squad, when they deliver something, they're responsible for it, and it's business and IT people, so they own that stuff, and if it's not good, it's up to them to solve it. But it's not like we from business and we from IT have to discuss there. It's their stuff. So okay. I think that kind of governance model solves a lot of problems. Yeah.
So you're recommending that other companies should create these combined teams of business and IT to solve common problems.
It depends, but I think for us at least, I've worked in ING for quite a while, and I've seen different reorganizations. I think this works out pretty well. So it's really improving the business IT alignment, which is rather complex. In a big company with a lot of departments, business IT, marketing, what else you have. If that's all in one squad and they just talk to each other when they deliver a product, that works. A lot of management around it and processes won't solve it. Yeah.
So the traditional hierarchical organization, it might not work in this, let's say,
it's not solving this
domain.
No.
All right. Other experiences on that, on talking with non-technical people about Bigstep? So other experiences in talking with non-technical people about implementing these complex behaviors, complex projects?
So I mean, we're an agile company, meaning we've been working via using the Scrum methodology since 2009, I think. Even before I joined in 2010. So we've always been working closely together with the business. And our organization is way smaller than the ING. Our business people are pretty IT savvy. Some of them really are. Some of them think they are. But the idea is kind of that although we don't have squads, we have teams. We have agile teams sitting next to the business persons they work with on a daily basis. So actually my teams are spread across the building. And that's how we try to form alignment. And we don't want to talk. We don't like to talk about business and IT. And we're in there together to build the best solutions for our customers and for our partners. And if you look at the people who are involved, I mean, they're involved in these type of building these type of solutions on a daily basis. So they have a good sense on also on the business, on what can be done, what cannot be done, how much it will take. But again, everyone sits in there, based with his own expertise. So a data type of person, data modeler, he probably knows a bit more about data modeling compared to a software engineer. But we really like to, not only like, we have to work together, closely together to build those great solutions. And what is also happening is that, call it business people, they start explaining to the technical people what they've heard or what they've seen. They might even attend conferences like this. I've heard something about, about Apache or about Spark or about Hot4. It's happening, and sometimes that's an interesting discussion. Yeah. Because it's not always correct.
Yeah.
Exactly. So IT is actually enabling what business wants. Yeah. So the stakeholders need to be involved from the start. So they express their they in advance what they want from the solution, where the teams need to go, and at the end how to use the solution is the part of the IT, but always we involve the stakeholders, because at the end they will use information. How they use information, it's really core of how you build how do you design the application up front. Yeah, so you need to understand up front, you need to design for analytics. When you build an application, when you need to design it to respond to the business needs. Yeah, so you need to know what the business expects before you start the design.
Maybe another thing which you also see happening, at least at Bordei.com, is that there are so many technical possibilities. The whole reason why we started using Hadoop is pretty much because we got to know the technology, we saw how it could benefit us, and we started experimenting. We just started building a cluster driven by IT, which is fine. I mean, we are kind of a technical company anyhow, and that's really so we could. It's not only about waiting for the business to come up with some kind of a like a request or a business case. It's also pushing technology, because technology can really change things.
Yes. Yeah, so you're even more. I think we as ING, I think we envision to be more an IT company than a bank. But you're an IT company, right? So more or less, a web company. So you see that. Yeah? Technology is driving the change.
And a lot. It's happening at more companies. It's the same thing with the way how we want to expose data, or the bulk interface concept. I mean, we want to make all data available for everyone. You have to. That concept, I mean, that's pretty easy to explain. But to make it happen, we need to find and to pick the right technology.
Yeah.
True. All right. Do you have infrastructure in the cloud?
Not for big data yet.
Well, for big data?
Yeah, we have infrastructure in the cloud. We work with the different cloud providers. Mm-hmm. So it is called the Accenture Cloud Platform, and also many of the customers, they want to have the private cloud solution in order to have the data inside. So there is a mix of asks. Like some of them, they want to have the solution still in their data center. Others they just want to see the results and what to do with the data. They want to be surprised. Yes, so they want the solution somehow as a service, and they want to have a project that builds on top of the existing data to build some intelligence, and then based on that intelligence to drive some new business.
I think so. About 2 years ago, we decided about our data center strategy. So we had a lot of data centers, across the country in the Netherlands, in Belgium. Still, we have across Europe. I think at that point it was considered too, let's say, insecure to move to our public cloud. So, we have quite confidential data from our customers. We have to be very careful with that. So there we started moving towards our private cloud indeed. So that's now ready, and we are moving towards that. But I think what the current movement I see is that from that private cloud is more becoming a kind of a layer between the DevOps teams in the organization and whatever infrastructure we need. So it's moving towards more becoming a security layer, have monitoring, have deployment, access and tooling to Azure or a Google Cloud or our own infrastructure, or maybe we have a certain appliance like Netezza for some stuff. So I think we first moved to private cloud and we actually built a data center, but that's now kind of it's not growing, so it's more becoming a service and connecting public clouds. As security is getting better, tools are getting better for that, so we can actually, even with the sensitive data we have, we can use public cloud. But it's kind of a movement going on right now.
Yeah, it goes really fast. Eh? If you look at the we had a bit of a similar thing. So if you look at the tooling and the solutions that are coming available or are available already from AWS or Google Cloud Services or Azure or whatever, I mean it goes so fast. I mean we can't. I mean as a small company, 1,100 people, we can't keep up. We can't keep up. So we are looking in those type of solutions because it's it will enable us to grow faster at the end. And next to that, I mean, especially with data crunching type activities, sometimes you need a lot of compute. But you only need it maybe once a day, or maybe 15 minutes a day, or maybe whatever it is. But if you have your own infrastructure, which we do, you need to be able to you need to have the infrastructure on premise to make it happen, which is kind of a waste of money if you think about it. Yeah? And I think if you look at it, we probably want to this could really help us to grow a bit faster and get the compute power we need for those 15 minutes, scale down again, and then continue with the next one.
But what I see is that at least in the most of ING, we're not really moving towards the platform as a service or the software as a service. So I think we keep developing our stuff inside ING. You can reuse some stuff, but I think we are not there yet that we are really going to pull Hadoop out of the cloud. So we think we can do that better ourselves still. So we're mainly using it for infrastructure as a service. So more. Not just give us a cheap VM with a lot of memory storage which can run, that we can spin up and spin down quickly. I think that's currently at least what I see. So we're not so into the real cloud services yet. But maybe we can blend that in, if we have that the security platform ready and see what fits best for purpose. But,
yes, just adding to this, there are some data residency issues. So. There are some compliance requirements, but right now the major public cloud providers, they do have data centers in many locations, so you can limit the data to stay in that location. So it's somehow it's better than it was in the past.
Yeah, it's important for us. That's not in the US indeed. So
exactly,
it needs to stay in Germany or Holland. Yeah. So, true. Yeah.
No, but if you look at it, I mean, even we spoke to Spotify not so long ago about their big data type solution. You can't compare it to our, you can't compare it to our environment. They have 2,000 servers. We have about 50, 60. But they're even moving to the cloud.
Yeah, they're moving to the cloud.
Which are moving. They're not there yet. They're on the way. Which indicates that even those type of companies that heavily depend on data to provide the best, in this case the best song list ever for a Spotify user, for myself. If they are considering it, it does mean it becomes more mature. I think we are pretty much on the edge of it was it becomes not really general available, but it becomes so mature that it would be a bit strange not to take it very seriously.
Yeah, they're quite. I talked to them at the Hadoop conference, I think in April or so in Dublin. Some of the engineers of that team, and they're quite. At least they are ahead of us, I think, because I think what they're doing now is they have Dockerized a lot of their stuff, and they're deploying it in Docker services or in Docker containers on the Google Cloud. I think that's kind of their strategy. So that's quite impressive to have Docker secured properly as well, of course. So that's, I think that's a reasonable line of thinking on where stuff can move. Yeah, Hadoop is a different story maybe, but
we're not going to put Hadoop in the cloud. We're going to move our big data platform in the cloud.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that's the other thing. I mean, moving it is not just copy paste type of activity. You actually have to redo it. I mean, if you want to move to Google Cloud Services, you have to use their tooling and their big data query type of solutions. And so that's a bit holding us back because we're not sure yet about the investment, but it will happen, I guess, sometime. But it's a bit of some pain.
Yes, it's something that eventually will happen in the future, considering the costs that will also be probably maintenance costs will be more competitive of using a cloud provider. And then when the solutions from the cloud providers will be mature enough, that's the big if, because it wasn't at some point in the past. They made quite good progress, all the cloud providers. So now they're mature. So we see a lot of clients moving to the cloud, their core data. So the core business data moving to the cloud, that's happening.
I firmly believe that we should remain that flexibility. So I think that idea that our cloud guys have, at least to build that layer where you can basically rather easily switch between the various clouds, I think that's a good approach because you don't want to lock in with Google or IBM or Microsoft or HP or whoever. So I think for us that's the way to go. Yeah.
Okay, so abstracting the cloud.
Yeah, using it, but we remain flexible. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, being able to move from a different provider to another provider. Yeah, this is a big concern. Yeah, so if you're using something, you will be locked into that vendor. So there are some solutions of going around that. So it is possible to actually transition in an easier way. It's not something that is easy to be done now. It's very complex, but it is possible. So it's something that can be done easier and easier. So in the future, we'll see some automation, I believe.
Yeah, I agree, but it's not really different from the past. And if you choose for Oracle as a database platform, you're kind of stuck with it because you that's what you know, that's what you use. So you're not in a very good negotiation. If you have to negotiate with Oracle, it's not so easy. So thank God there's a good alternative now called Postgres. Yeah. But I mean, it's not so different. And I think personally, I'm not sure if how often you would really want to move from from AWS to Google services to Azure. I understand the reasoning, and conceptually I actually agree. But if you think about it, it's a lot of hassle.
Yeah, it can be difficult. Yeah, so you need to make that. The difficulty is making that easy. Yeah. So, but I think it's a good goal to aim for. And you also indeed the Oracles, the IBMs. Yeah, basically, I think if I look at what we are doing in my department, we're trying to really move away from all the big vendors and move as much as possible to open source, because I think we see too little innovation, at least in the tooling we use on that side. Some things are getting better. IBM Watson in the cloud is pretty cool. It's only in the English language, so for Dutch it doesn't really help. But so for the rest, if I see what I like Oracle and Infosphere, it's kind of 2005-ish. It's not really like now. So yeah.
In the old world, we used to have packaged software. We used to develop something for a life cycle of, let's say, 10, 15 years or even more. What's the current shelf life of an application from your experience? I mean, you've mentioned that you need to rebuild everything when you move to a new cloud, but how often do you rebuild things now?
So we are founded in 1999. So our oldest application is probably 18 years old, I guess. But what we it's a bit difficult to say, but I would, because we've chosen for the service-oriented architecture. So we have about 120, 130 services, transactional services, and we are continuously enhancing, rebuilding, redoing. But if you look at across the application platform, I would say we have some older parts which are maybe 6-7 years old already. I mean, they have changed throughout the years, but in base they are 6-7 years old. But I would say the majority, the life cycle is about 3 to 5 years, I think. And those are mature services. I mean, of course we have we're building prototypes, we're doing experiments, we're taking 2 routes, or we're building actually 2 different solutions for the same thing to figure out what would work best. So the shelf life for those ones is a month, maybe 3 months, but that's about it. But we're not. I don't think we're in a situation yet that we build it and then we redo it half a year later. It has happened, but it's not. Yeah, it's more like we start small and we start augmenting and improving, and then maybe we split it. If it becomes too big, that's kind of how we work.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. If you look at the legacy you have, you always have that. We also have this. We still have mainframes. I see people still developing stuff in racks. So that's kind of from the 80s. But if you look at the big data part and the analytics, the structured data, I think that is a little bit more long-lived. So if we report to regulatory stuff, that stuff, may stay there for years, I think. But if you look more at the analytics side, where we, have the patterns, where we use to service our customers better, to create mini services and APIs that can live for maybe half a year or a year and then be totally different or changed So I think the new stuff is more granular and also less long-lived. So
Okay. So it's more towards the monolithic. It's a transition between big monolithic applications towards microservices, architectures, and each individual service has a different, smaller shelf life than all the other components and get replaced quickly.
It's a move that it won't retire the old applications immediately, but as soon as all the features will be implemented, everything will be renewed. So we usually what I see, adding new components, leaving some of the old inside, but when everything leaves in new components, then retire. That's difficult to do because there is a resistance to change. There are people that are using that. They think that's very valuable. Yes, that is. But as soon as you can get something that produces more value, replaces all the features, then the companies, they will try to retire that. It's not easy, but this is the right move.
Can this approach be used with the cloud as well? Just move parts of the application slowly as they grow in a kind of a, let's say, hybrid approach, where you use both on-premise and the cloud at the same time for different purposes.
I think
leveraging the strengths.
That can work perfectly well. So you can have some containers running in the cloud with a specific functionality. You can have some data sitting somewhere else. I think that it's the only way to go because you won't go big bang. At least that's not what we do these days anymore. You go in really small microservice steps. I think, like you said, and slowly you build up something new and you build off something old.
Yeah, we use a lot of hybrid cloud already. So there are some there is a fast pace now of developing new applications with new features, with new data that is collected, but also somehow keep the old data because that's valuable as well, and integrate or move what we can move in the new. It's not very easy to do that because we were collecting, or the companies, they were collecting different information 10 years or 20 years ago. That's very valuable. Take an insurance company. They had some data. They are living on that data because they calculate everything based on the historical information. So that was the information that is available. Now it's new information, it's more information that is available, but you need to actually integrate and plug in with the data that you already have. So there is now, people, these data scientists, they have a lot of work to do now.
Understand.
All right. We have about 5 minutes left, and raise your hands if you have questions for the panel around this space. Come on, don't be shy. I know you have. All right. Do you have a mic? Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You mentioned at some point financial reports. Okay. From my experience, I saw that there are some business users. Okay, they usually use languages like SQL. Do you agree on this?
Yeah.
Okay. How do you see this movement to the cloud? How do you think this transition will impact them?
For financial reporting, for those
example,
business users.
For example, yes.
I think what we try to do is enable them to do stuff themselves. They can, for example, use Cognos Analytics or things like that to, they have the data there and they can play around with it or make their own reports. So they don't do SQL or anything, they just, drag the boxes. I think basically that's what we do, and that can also run in the cloud, so that's not...
You mean like run queries in the cloud, or?
Yeah, the data can be in, if I think about cloud as the infrastructure, the database can be there and the applications can be there and they can access it from wherever they are, so the only main point there is the security, of course, of that data, but yeah.
Yeah, so
Thank you.
basically they use a very nice interface where they're able to slice and dice information, and so they're looking through the data, drilling down and finding where is actually the problem, if they identify some business problem. So they use that information in a visual way, very visual way. Some time back, everyone was writing SQL.
Yeah, so you're not also... I think maybe 5 years ago or 10 years ago, when you had Cognos or you had business objects, you build these reports. It's a lot of work, and then you work for 3 months. You had this report that financial guy really wanted, but that's not really how we try to work these days. So we provide them with the data and, let's say, some templates and some basic reports, and from there, it's up to you guys and have fun with it. It's your report, so more like that. Yeah.
It's the also Bol.com, we have the self-service model, but we do provide the data in a structured format.
Exactly.
In platform, they call those things lenses. So those are defined, that's where the definitions are stored. But you can do pretty much everything you want based on those lenses. You can, if you want to build report A, you can just do it. But it is, what has happened also probably in other companies is if there's a need, people will find ways. So in the past, they were using ClickView, for instance. You probably know that. Very easy to build a nice report. But the downside is obviously that person A creates a report based on ClickView, based on whatever table A. The other one builds a similar report on a slightly different data set, and then you can have interesting discussions. And that's what we try to avoid. It's not easy, even at our company. I mean, we're not so big, but it's not so easy. But we do think we can improve, and we should improve there. And that's also why we're investing in those data definitions.
Yeah, exactly. So you try to help them with processing the data once properly, put that in the data lake, and then various people can use that data instead of indeed people in ClickView making this kind of very complicated queries who no one understands after a few years, and then that is very critical business report they need to use. So you want to get rid of that situation. Yeah. We have to become ClickView. Yeah.
Yeah, another solution is of course to query the transactional system, which is what we've done as well in SQL. But I'm also not a big fan about that one anymore. That's what we did in the past as well. And, so that's the nice thing about what we can do right now. We can really improve things for our users and also for our customers. And, by the tool set, by the data we have available, that's I think it's pretty cool.
Can I add one thing?
Thank you.
To your answer, to your question. You can use SQL in Hadoop as well. There are various solutions for doing that. Just think about Spark SQL or Drill. There are many solutions. So basically taking your existing knowledge and applying it to data that resides in this data lake. You might not be able to do the same, let's say the full set of things that you can do, like apply machine learning, but definitely you can still leverage those skills. And in fact, I've seen that SQL on Hadoop is used more and more, especially because it's easier to understand people. It's a lot easier to write a SQL statement than write, gazillion Scala lines in a functional programming language I might not know. So it's actually make it easier to transition from SQL to Scala and vice versa. So it doesn't have to be one or the other. It can be both.
No, I agree. But it's more the data scientists or the IT people that use it. The IT engineers, they would use that. Not really the business people. Yeah.
All right. There was another question, I think. Yeah, you were first.
Hi. First of all, thank you for the presentation. My question would be regarding convergency, because I know it's one of the most important pillars for data lakes. Regarding infrastructure, you mentioned the cloud, that you will move everything in cloud, but how can you enforce more than 50 countries, or I know ING works with more than 50 countries, to have the same data model or a common definition for the business, on the business side, for the business terms? How can you enforce that?
Yeah, basically that's currently happening. So that's more the business side of it, actually. Yeah? So technically we can facilitate that, but from a business point of view, people need to agree. But I think basically we're using Bordei, Business Data Warehouse, as a language. And we have kind of a core model of key financial data, and that's growing. And we do that together with the other countries. That's we're not there yet, but that's how we work. So we govern that from ING Bank centrally, and step by step, people from the data lakes in the various countries will need to deliver in that language the main lead, the information you really need to share. So the key products, key financials for financial reporting, that kind of stuff. But it's more a governance thing than an IT problem. So it's really aligning all the business people on what is that model, do we agree on that model, is this agreement related to that customer in that way? That's complex discussions, but yeah, it takes some time.
Okay, but...
Yeah,
Cool.
Thank you. I'm afraid the time is up, and as you've seen, we're really packed, and we're having talks back to back, so we need to clear the room. But thank you for attending, and chase the speakers if you have further more detailed questions and get more detailed answers. Thank you.
Okay.